everyone. I'm Sarthak Goyal, a member of the Entrepreneurship cell of Delhi Technological University, and I would be hosting Niyo presents Entrepr-On-Air, powered by Verzeo.
Good afternoon, Ankit Mehrotra, sir. We feel elated to be able to host you for Niyo Presents Entrepreneur, powered by Verzeo. We're gratified by having someone of your stature in our series and hope to make the best out of this opportunity. I am Sarthak Goyal, a third year student of E-Cell DTU. E-Cell DTU is a non-profit organization run by students of Delhi Technological University, and this is the podcast by the same. So before starting, I'd like to ask you, how should I address you for the rest of the podcast?
Ankit is fine, Aaron. First of all, thanks for having me over here, Sarthak. It's a pleasure to be here with the E-Cell DTU, and I look forward to a great session. And Ankit is just fine.
Okay, great. So Ankit, when we were researching the questions to ask you, and there were so many interviews that we have given, and there's so many podcasts that are already there on net. So there was a question that no one ever asked. I wanted to ask you about your teen years. How would you describe your teen years?
Yeah.
Were you popular, or were you a studio student?
So I think, wow, man, you've taken me back quite a few years. So yeah, no, that's a great question actually. So I think growing up in the 90s was a great time, but I think the current times have changed tremendously from so that was 20 years 20 years back. And I think at that point in time, so I was a science student, right? So, and like 99% of parents in India at that point in time, the ambition was to, study science and get into engineering colleges, etc. So I think my entire, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, like those 5-6 years was just about, studying and, ensuring that I'm able to get good grades and then, get into IIT or one of those things, So it was, so I think during the high school sort of a year, it was just about studying. So I used to have my share of fun, but it was mostly about studying. At least that's what I remember. And obviously, you have to remember the times were very different from today. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have social media, we didn't, television and satellite was just coming in. So there wasn't much you could do. So it was a lot of studies and then playing outside, cricket, cycling, etc. So it was the I would say in a way the good old days, which kids today do not sort of go through. But yeah, it was fun.
Are you still a workaholic, someone who prefers to do the work or study instead of being involved and procrastinating?
So I think it's a workaholic. To be honest, is a mindset. So it depends for different things. So obviously, because I'm running my own business right now, and there's the team size of Dineout is 800 people spread across 20 cities, and the Dineout business is spread across five different countries. I have to be on top of stuff, and I have to be sort of involved in multiple things. But that doesn't mean that I don't sort of take my time to have fun, right? Or I don't take a break. It doesn't mean that I don't take a break. So I love playing poker. So I play a lot of poker with friends. I love playing PlayStation, like especially FIFA. So so I love cooking as well. So I'm able to find breaks there, and then I have a family at home, just a very young daughter right now. So obviously you find your times for breaks. But I think the main difference today is that the line. If you're having fun doing your work, then it's no longer it doesn't appear as burdensome as it is. So
Right.
I managed to do a mix of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about FIFA and being a football enthusiast myself. I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite club or team?
So I went to so before moving to London, I didn't I wasn't following football that much because we come from a cricket crazed country. So I moved to London in 2002, and for the first 3-4 months I saw all clubs in action. And at that point in time, I fell in love with Arsenal just because of their gameplay. So this is 2002 we're talking about. And from then on, we had the whole era of the Invincibles in 2004. And I've just been an Arsenal fan, since then.
Right. So, I mean, picturing the Arsenal right now, not doing that well that they used to do. and not coming in the top
Yeah,
four.
I think.
What do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think this Premier League season holds for them?
I think it's going to be interesting. So I also play, the fantasy football. So I'm in the fantasy football league as
Wow.
well. I play that with friends and all. I think it's going to this season is going to be really interesting. So for a couple of reasons. The first is that most of these big match players, they love performing for an audience, and
Right.
for the first time ever, we are having matches in an empty stadium.
Audience. Yeah.
So it's definitely going to impact how people play, etc. However, having said that, Arsenal are off to a strong start this season. They've got some after a long time. They've done some good signings.
Good
They've got
segment,
a good
yes.
they've got a good lineup. I think Willian has come in and made an impact straight
Yeah.
away. So it's going to be interesting. But having said that, Liverpool sort of have picked up from where they left off. Chelsea appear on fire. So it's gonna hopefully it's gonna be an interesting season.
This would be. I mean, Chelsea would after signing up such amazing players, and Liverpool also
Yeah,
signed up. They signed up from Bayern. They signed up, and then now they signed up from Wolves as well. Yes. Yesterday
correct.
night.
Yeah, and this is Salah's I think fourth season or fifth season in the Premier League, and he just doesn't want to stop. So he's on fire. He's crazy.
I mean, it was they were scoring at their home stadium, so he
Yeah,
had to score.
correct. Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. Let's see.
How difficult was it to get into the University of Essex?
To be honest, and this is something which so there's a twist behind how I sort of got into Essex. So once I completed once I finished school, or when everyone gives their engineering entrance exams, etc. So I tried for IIT, and I just missed the cutoff mark or something like that. So obviously I was very devastated. But then my parents were upset. But then I was also giving these entrance exams for other engineering colleges pan India, and I had managed to get into engineering college in Pune.
Okay.
And as a result of that, so my parents were like, no, you have to go engineer. So it was an IT course, I think computers and computers and information technology, something like that. And my parents were hell bent on sending me there. Meanwhile, I had not told anyone, and I had done my own research, and I had found a few universities in the UK, and I had applied myself to those universities, and I had managed to get a admission at Essex after having done the initial formality, but I had not told my parents that at that point in time. And they were very, as I said, so they were hell bent on me sort of studying engineering, sending me to Pune. So I actually went to Pune. So the term starts in India around end of June or something. So I went to Pune. I went to the college for 1 month, and few things happened. There was I got into a little bit of mischief. I got into it was fun times. And then basically essentially 1 month later I came back. I ran back and I came home. Like I took a train by myself, and I reached back home to Delhi. I think sometime in mid-July, after 4 weeks at college over there. And I just told my parents that if you want me to study engineering, and if you want me to make something of myself, I can't do it. I need to go outside India, and it's always been my dream. And I managed to get admission. And I think that was when they realized that I'm really serious about it, because a lot of people talk, but then I had managed to fill in the applications, etc., everything, and managed to sort of get an admission. And from July end, basically, I fast tracked everything. My dad helped me. He had to take out a sort of a student's loan at that point in time for me, but he did that, etc. And first week of September, I was in the UK. So yeah, so everything happened in a very short period of time, and I think it's that was probably one of the best decisions I'd ever taken, sort of in my life till then. And my parents sort of convincing them was a nightmare. And you have to understand why, right? This is 2002. A lot of people are not going outside from India to study abroad. I come from a joint family, multiple sets of family members on both parents, on the dad's side and the mom's side. Everyone is like, oh, you're gonna send, bete ko bahar bhejoge, wo bigad jayega. All those things that parents and family members obviously sort of keep saying. He will never come back home. So there are those multiple things that my parents, had to struggle with. But yeah, ultimately I ended up getting to Essex in September 2002. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, I'm glad that was your best decision. I mean, that there goes
Yeah.
one of my questions that I was going to ask you. And how
Yeah.
different was the Essex college culture from Indian colleges culture, that is Delhi University
I
culture,
was,
right? Culture.
I was absolutely blown away. Like, and it's important to, so again, this is not the 2020s or 2015s
Yeah,
we're talking, 2015 that we're talking about. This is 2002, right?
right.
And this is again before social media, before everything, phones, before every child has a phone, etc. It's way before that. So
Right.
the lifestyle in India was very different, right? When you're so even though I went to modern school, which is one of the premier
Top
private
schools.
schools in Delhi, and it's a co-ed school,
Yeah.
however, still, in India, you're very protected with your family. You're not allowed to do much. You're not allowed to. So you're always, in a shell. And once I reached Essex, I was completely blown away by the freedom that was there to offer. By the different cultures. So Essex, one of the reasons why I chose Essex, apart from having a great engineering course, so I actually went and did computers and telecom engineering over there. But the another reason was I had a great multicultural sort of a student body from students from across 150 odd countries. And when you're there, and all of a sudden you're meeting these people from different students from different backgrounds, different nationalities, different experiences, you're blown away because all of a sudden you realize that studies and getting into engineering college or sort of getting good grades is not the only thing that matters in life. There's a lot of things beyond that. I think that was the first time I ever got to sort of understand that what life experience, what is it called to have a life experience, or what is it called to have experiences. And the reason why I say that is because typically, if you sort of ask any student who's just finished school, or at least from 10-12 years back, who finished school, it was all about studying in your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, getting good grades and getting right into college. And then it's a race that sort of began then when you were sort of 14, 15 years old. Whereas over there, most of the students that I were interacting with and who ended up being my friends, they took a gap year out after school. Some of them traveled, some of them did odd jobs. It was crazy, it was so different. The concept of part-time, for example, the concept of part-time jobs was completely new to me, and we don't see that happening in India as much. But I went there in the first year itself. I took up a job at the Students' Union bar. So those experiences were absolutely crazy. The lifestyle, the friends, the freedom, and I think there was also challenges. So as I say, with sort of great, with freedom comes great responsibility, etc.
Responsibility.
Yeah, so I think that is also very true. And personally, from a personal experience, I learned it the hard way because when you're in the Indian society, you're very sort of cocooned and sheltered. So you're not allowed to. Maybe things are different now, but maybe I'm talking about when I was just in finishing school. You're not allowed to drink. It's a taboo, etc. All of those things, right? And then when I went there was no one to stop you. And I think for the first 2-3 months, I went absolutely crazy. And then I had to sort of rein myself back in because once you realize that there's no one to stop you and the responsibility lies on you, that is when the reality hits you. So a lot of people adjust to things in a different way. I think it took me a couple of months to sort of realize the importance of where I am and what I'm doing. But once I did that, it was absolutely a great time. Yeah.
So, did you have any backlogs in your college? Backlog issue, something?
I think, to be honest, from that perspective, I think not really backlogs, but I think there were a few sort of a must-haves that would change me. Experiences which sort of help define me. But the first and the most important is how your habits change. And the first, like, I'll give you an example, right? So one of the things, so I went because of my age, and I went there when I was 17. So I landed at university when I was 17, and I was like 6 months earlier than everyone else in from an age bracket perspective. And imagine this, right? A 17-year-old who's just landed into at a college in the UK, who's never been who's never been away from family is free all of a sudden. And there are certain things that we all take for granted. And for me, obviously, that was good food. Like, as Indians, we all like, our parents, everything. Food is a very important part of our culture. However, when you're there, all of a sudden, you realize that there's no one to cook for you. So the first 2-3 months, I was just sort of ordering food from outside or doing takeaways, etc. And by 3 months, I was so tired that, the first break that I came back home, I think I was literally in tears with my mom that, Mom, I can't eat that food anymore, And I think, so the second best decision, I give credit to my mom, the second best decision that she ever took for me was gave me a pressure cooker, which I carried back home. Because I never realized how versatile and instrument a pressure cooker is, because that's where I sort of learned how to cook. And today, I can proudly say that I can cook in sort of 8 different cuisines, etc. So it was a great sort of a beginning to a journey that I loved. The introduction to food because of that pressure cooker. So that was, for me, so cooking became that sort of backlog, a rite of passage, at least from my perspective.
Right.
The second moment where my parents were shocked was that, again, when I came back home so I came back home in the winter breaks, which was 3 months later, and the first meal I had at home, I just finished my meal, got up and washed my dishes, and my mom, dad, sister, my servant, everyone was like just shocked that what has happened to this guy, because obviously when you're in India, you don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, you do that.
So that's when, those were the initial few quirky things that happened, but yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Any funny incident from your college life? Anything you'd like to share? Something you did or happened? You pranked someone?
Sorry?
You pranked someone?
There were so many of them, but a few things. I see the problem with mentioning about pranks is that someone might just copy it and then you get blamed for it. So I'm not going to talk about pranks, but there were a lot of them that I did. However, I think a learning experience which sort of solidified the cultural difference for me happened during the first set of exams that I ever gave at university. Okay. So, and this for me was an eye opener as well as sort of a life change. I would say, a life changer in terms of how we perceive things. So here's what happened, right? So it was the first ever exam that I was giving at the university at the end of the first term.
Right.
We're in a hall with around 200 odd students, and we're sitting there and we're writing this paper, and it was a 3-hour exam. And I had been up for the last 1 week studying, so this whole habit of cramming never goes, right? So what we used to do in India, the same thing I think I was doing there, that 1 week before the exams, just go through your book, start cramming, etc.
Right.
And then I'm there in this exam, right? And it's a 3-hour paper, and I am just busy writing, and I'm trying to fill answer sheets, and I'm looking at the watch, at the clock, trying to 2 hours to go, etc. And in the middle and I think it was around 1.5 hours, so halfway through the paper, I noticed a couple of my friends who these are British friends. They just sort of got up and walked out, and I was like amazed that wow, how could they finish the exam in like 1.5 hours? I was like, that's not possible. But I was like, maybe I'm doing something wrong, etc. So anyways, after the paper is over and I'd spent the entire, so I think I didn't know all the answers, but it's mandatory for us being Indians to write till the last minute, something till the last minute, and maybe just sort of keep writing 2 minutes or 5 minutes beyond the exam paper as well, whatever it is. So I finished that paper, I went out and I asked them that, yeah, how is that possible that you guys were able to sort of finish your exam in 1.5 hours and walk out? And they were like, no mate, we didn't finish, but we didn't know the answer, so we just let it be, and we just in 1.5 hours we wrote whatever we knew and we walked out. And I was amazed with that, because I asked them, doesn't it matter to you that if you get low grades, or what if you fail? And that the answer that the guy said to me was that, dude, it's just an exam and it's not a life or death situation, and if I fail, I'm gonna probably do better the next time. I'm gonna learn from it. And that for me was just blew my mind away, that we're in a environment where we don't know what the word failure means, or at least that's the pressure that we take on ourselves because of society. Whereas here I am in a culture and an environment where, for them, it's failure is also a part of an experience, which teaches them something, So for me, that was an eye opener. And from that point in time, I think the one lesson that has always stuck with me has been that the fear of failure has been greatly diminished. And I think because of that one single lesson, I think I've been able to sort of, do whatever I have been able to do throughout, in the last sort of, 15, 20 years, whether it's investment banking, whether it's, starting up Dineout. So all those things have been possible because of that one single, sort of experience that I had.
So we'll take that into account. I think this can be one of the, the headlines of this podcast or something like that. But moving on, I'll ask you a question which I don't know if you're comfortable with answering or not, but I'll still ask it. I'll go for it. I'll shoot the gun. How socially active were you? And by socially active, I mean, or did you have any relationships? Were you active in that area?
Absolutely. Okay. So here's the thing, right? So I would say when I went to university, again, a modern school, one of the top private schools in Delhi, co-ed, etc. So, I thought that I'm coming from a background that I'm very comfortable, sort of where I have a lot of friends, comfortable talking to, girls, etc. All of those things. So I arrived at university with this bucket loads of confidence. And in the first 1 month, it was all shattered because I realized that again, as I said, that for wherever I arrived, because our concept of, freedom and friendships and everything was so very different from what I saw there. So, so for example, and I hope no one sort of takes it the wrong way. Anyone who's listening to the podcast or who's watching this, but when we are growing up in schools or colleges, it's supposed to be such a taboo, or like it's so difficult trying to go talk to a girl or trying to figure out, it takes so much time, or if you like someone, to go admit to that person, and you have to, there will be 10 other people either trying to ridicule you or mock you or some of those things. Maybe things have changed right now, and again, that might make me sound old, but the fact is that that's what was, that's what used to happen then in 2000 and 2000, 2001, 2002, and then all of a sudden I'm here in an environment where it's so easy to go talk to people that it took me such a long time to gather courage, because I didn't know that what am I going to say, because all of a sudden the topics that you used to discuss with your friends are no longer sort of relevant. Your experiences are no longer relevant. It's a completely different world out there, right? So I think the first few months was sort of I would say a complete sort of a mind block for me as to how do I go interact, make friends, etc. But I think I got over, for example, the first couple of times I went to a club, it was those typical situations where you're standing in one corner, having a drink in your hand, watching everyone, but you don't have the courage to go talk to people. I think those were the things that happened. And that was when I realized that, the background that I'm coming from, wherever I'm coming from is no longer relevant. And I need to sort of, become so I need to start from scratch. You're not carrying any baggages. You need to start from scratch. Your experiences that you've had in the past are no longer relevant, etc. And I think that sort of shift took some time to happen. But once I got going, I had the best times of my, those 3 years at university was the best times of my sort of life. So, one of the things, for example, I did was that I made a mission to make friends from new countries every single term. And by the end of it, I had friends from Spain, from France, from Italy, from Germany. I traveled. So one of the things that I always did. So a lot of students, especially from India, whenever they used to get a break, so a 1 month long break between terms, etc., they used to come back home. I never came back home. I used to travel to different countries, and I used to go with my friends. So let's say I went to Spain with a few of my Spanish friends, and I lived at their house. I experienced their culture. I went to Italy with and obviously I didn't have enough money at that point in time. So I used to work during the term, save up money doing part-time jobs, and then use that to travel. So I think it was amazing. And by the end of it,
this is such an inspiring story. I mean, doing work part time while you're in the college and saving money just to travel and explore different cultures. I mean, that is
Yeah.
such inspiring. At
So
the same time, you're also adapting the new culture that you're going through.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's also teaching you about. So, for example, my lessons in entrepreneurship actually started during that time, and I'll tell you an experience which got me sort of started onto this journey, right? So when I used to come to India, obviously by this time I had a lot of friends over there, and a lot of them were obviously women, etc. Right? So every time I used to come back to India, I used to try to take some gifts for them because people used to love authentic Indian
Yeah.
stuff. So I used to take a lot of sort of silver jewelry, trinkets, etc. Whatever I could find get my hands on, and I used to give it to them, and they used to love it, right? And when they used to go back, they used to show to their friends or families or whatever. They used to love it, and they wanted to find out where they can get it from. So after a period of time, like a couple of maybe 6 or 9 months into it, I realized that wow, it's a great thing. And the next time I came back home, I took 50 pieces with me, and I managed to sell all of them. Then
Wow.
the next time I came home, I took 200 pieces with me, and I managed to sell all of them. You have to understand, right? These are silver jewelries or fashion jewelries, which are like, you can get at 300-400 rupees on Janpat.
Yeah,
Whereas whereas
It's
over
good.
there, I could sell it for 20-25 pounds. So that was a crazy, like, I realized that's a crazy markup. And eventually, and this is the important point, right, of having great friends, I was able to basically, so I remember like a couple of my Spanish friends, a couple of my Italian friends, eventually I was buying, giving it to them, and then they were selling it ahead in their circle. So during, because obviously women love jewelry
Yeah.
and these special, and
Observant
so it
silver.
was crazy, right? Yeah.
So
So
much
it just
available in
made
India.
life a lot easier, and I was able to sort of save earn a lot of money through this, and had a lot of fun doing all of this. So
And also, you
it's a great
must have saved in the import and export duty.
friends with live, etc. So it was great.
Right. And you must have also saved the import and export duty, taking 50 pieces, 200 pieces.
No, obviously. Yeah. I didn't know the concept of those duty, etc. At that point in time. No one should do that now. Or
No one should. Yeah. Saying that, what were your dreams in college and how did it change over time?
I think that's a great question, and I think that's a very relevant question as well. So the background to obviously this is that I was a science student. I was studying engineering, and the expectation was always to have a career in engineering. That's what 99% of the people used to do, right? Whether when you go study engineering and then you want to go have a job in IT. However, while during my experience at university, I think learning, and especially the teaching methodology, was so different from the way it is in India. There was a lot of practical, hands-on experiences, a lot of coding during the initial days, etc. So it was a very hands-on experience. At that point in time, I realized that a career in engineering is not for me. And for the first couple of years at university, I was very worried because typically with my friends or the stories that I heard was always that you are into engineering college and then this is what it is, right? You're gonna go get a job in IT or something like that. And this for me is the main difference between the education system in the UK. What I experienced in India was the fact that no point in time was I ever told by anyone like counselors, etc. at university that I can only have a job in IT and nothing beyond that. In fact, at university, I had a lot of friends who were studying sort of accounting or finance, etc. And I always sort of used to spend some time with them, and I used to love this entire concept of finance. And for me, I thought that maybe that's the career I want to have in. So when I finished university, I got a good degree. So my degree was computers and telecom engineering, and from a percentage or a marks perspective, so they don't have exact marks. They have they have a class. So the best is first, and then the next best is 2.1, and then 2.2, 2.3, and then you have 3, which is sort of borderline. So I got a 2.1 and it was great, but I realized that I don't want to do anything to do with engineering. I want to actually have a career in finance, and I started to apply for all the investments. So I started to apply for all entry level jobs in finance, across investment banks, across, accounting firms, etc. Now, obviously, because I had no background in that, it was a bit difficult for me. And typically, when you start applying for jobs is when you're in the third year at university. So the way the cycle works is that you start applying from September, October onwards. You have your interviews, etc. During November, December, January, and by February, March, you get an acceptance letter for starting in September, starting in July, once you finish your college. So that's the process I did the first time around, and unfortunately, I was not able to get any job because obviously of the background that I was coming from, and I didn't know anything at that point in time. Like, what it's the first time I was applying, I didn't know what to answer. And in job interviews over there are very different than the ones in India, right? Over there, you have multiple levels. You have a psychometric test, you have a written test, you have a mathematical test, then you have group discussions, you have panel discussions. So overall, you have like 8 or 9 steps as a before you are able to get accepted. And this I'm talking about top tier investment banks or accounting firms, etc. Right? And they're all graduate programs, and it was very important for me to get onto a graduate program because it meant that if I was able to get into a graduate program, they would sponsor my work visa. Otherwise, without that, I would have had to come back home.
Yeah.
So that was the challenge, and that was why I had to get into a certain type of a job. Now, the first year, I started my third year of university in 2004 September. So from 2004 September 2000, the end of the year, and then the early part of 2005, I was just applying for jobs. And by the time I graduated in 2005 summer, I didn't have anything in hand. And, obviously I was very dejected. And meanwhile, most of my friends had managed to get a jobs, and my friends in the engineering, from the engineering field, they had managed to get jobs in IT. And I had also got a couple of job offers from a couple of IT firms. But that was clear. One thing was clear to me, that I didn't want to do that. And for me, I think that point in life was the most difficult because from 2005 summer, the next 6 months, I was, I moved. So I was no longer at university. I moved to a friend's place in London. I was sleeping on the couch for 6 months, and I was just trying to do jobs, and I was trying to do part-time, and I was doing part-time jobs to earn money. So I worked in, let's say, a shopping. I worked in a sort of a grocery store. I worked at restaurants. I worked at bars. But the one thing that was clear was that I wanted to have like a job in finance. So, and from 2005 summer, which is normally July, August, September, October, November, December, I again did the whole interview process again. So I applied to all these banks. I made sure. So during that 6 months, I probably filled in more than 150 application forms.
Wow.
And I used to go for interviews, etc. And by the end of it, I think finally I got a job in 2000. My final yes came in March 2006. So from July 2005 till March 2006, those 9 months, I as I said, I probably applied 150 application forms. I did 100 plus interviews, and finally I was able to get an offer from three top tier investment banks. And finally I chose BNP Paribas, and I was supposed to join in 2006 September. And I think those 9 months, while it was a very difficult point in time, I think those 9 months also hardened me as an individual, because for the first time ever, I realized the importance of having a dream and sticking to it. It would have been very easy for me to just sort of, give up and go take a job in IT. But I think if I would have done that, I would have, where I am today would have been very different from where I would have probably turned out. And also during that time, as I said, a lot of people were able to sort of get jobs in different places. So all my friends were working. I stopped taking money from my parents at that point in time because, they wanted me to come back. So they were like, okay, it's enough. Now, you have your grandparents, you have the entire family. So they're like, come back. And I was like, no, I'm not going to come back. So they're like, okay, if you're not going to come back, then you're on your own. Then we're not going to send you money. So, it was those difficult, that was the sort of time, the period for me that was, I went through. But I think, as they say, it was, in hindsight, probably the 3 best, so the 9 months of hardship, but probably the best times in my life, because I realized a lot about myself during that time. And finally, when I got the job, I think it was probably very rewarding and satisfying because investment banking, apart from being what I wanted to sort of do, also was very high paying. So I started in 2006 September, and my first salary itself, my first annual salary was I think 45 or 40,000 pounds or something like that, right? That's what I start. That's what I started on in 2006, and that is from where I realized the importance of money as well, because everyone, imagine a 21-year-old getting a salary which was equivalent to, let's say, 30 odd, 40, 35 odd lakhs in India at that point in time. I think that's when, the whole perspective shift happened and was complete. So it was, yeah. I think that's when I realized the importance of having my dream and sticking to it.
Right. Coming from there, staying at someone's couch, being between jobs, doing part-time jobs and stuff, and come from there till here. I mean, such a journey, such a beautiful journey that you've had. It actually it makes any person, in an awe and an aspiration. I mean, what a journey that you've had, and it's such a difficult journey, and definitely it wouldn't have been easier. Right, moving on to the next question. I'll ask about BNP Paribas itself. How were the 7 years when you worked in investment banking? How were those years?
It was absolutely crazy, and it was absolutely the best time of my. So I keep saying the best time of my life in hindsight. Like, college was there, but I think it was different experience. So college was a completely different experience. I think from BNP Paribas was a completely different experience from a career perspective as well as from an experience perspective. So, and I'll tell you why, right? Here's me going into a job in finance without having zero experience in finance, right? I had not no sort of, I had not done a course in finance. I had no idea about what it was. And here's me starting something new. So the learning curve was amazing. And one thing about the work experience or the working life in the UK, at least from a personal experience, was that once you're in, right, you're like any other person. It's not like you're a fresher or you're a newbie. So obviously they give you, because I started in the graduate program. So I had a 6-month period of learning in terms of doing different things, trying to understand what a job is all about. But after that, you're equally responsible as someone who's been there for, working for 15 years. So you're equally responsible for what you're doing. It's not like, that they give you small projects or something like that. So it was absolutely crazy. And because I had to get my base in finance right also. So one of the first things I did was actually enroll myself in the CFA, the CFA course. So Chartered Financial Analyst.
Yeah.
And I think that is where I realized, so while I was having a lot of fun working, it was about working late hours. Investment banking is obviously doing sort of, at that point in time was doing, 13-14 hours a day, and then going out and having a great time. So you finish work, go out, have drinks, then you go back home, sleep, and come back to work the next day. You go travel lots. It was crazy, and because obviously for the first time ever in my life, I had so much money as well available to me that, I was trying, it was crazy, but I was just trying to come up with different ways to spend all that money, because that was the first time I had the freedom to do that, So it was that sort of experience. But then I was also making sure that I was probably the best at what I do in terms. So when as for example, CFA, when I started doing that, typical work day for me was I used to get up at 6 o'clock. I used to sort of study a couple of hours, then go start work the entire day, then go study at the library 2 hours in the evening, come back home, cook, eat, go to the gym in between and sleep. So when I had to study, I used to make sure that I used to go all out and study because I had to get this CFA. But when I was not studying, I was making sure that I was having, great times. And, again, the main difference of a lifestyle in the UK for me was that the accessibility to so many things which probably appear, so difficult in India. So, for example, we used to go to these driving events and we used to go crazy and drive these, Ferraris and, Formula 3 cars, etc. We used to go, I've done basically glide, go up in gliders, these different experiences, go to music festivals, travel, like you name it, and you could do it. And that was the beauty of for me, like those experiences, life experiences, travel across, drive across the UK, drive across Europe, and this is again, experiences form such an important part of what you do and what you sort of how they help shape you up as a person. And for me, the experiences were what I still remember about my time at university and then while working at BNP.
What is your workday like now when you're working for Dineout? When you're at Dineout, what
So
is your workday like?
yeah, so I think the main, and that's a great question. Again, I think the main difference between when I was working with BNP was that as soon as I left the front door of work, whether it is 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., it doesn't matter. I could completely switch off.
Yeah.
And whereas now, obviously, it's very different because, you're on constantly 24/7, right? You're thinking about the challenges that you've had in the day, or about a problem that's come up that needs to be solved, or how do you make, your experience better for your customers. Just to give you, a sort of why I'm saying that. So, over the years, Dineout has gotten sort of significantly larger, and today we're the largest dining out platform in India. And
Yeah.
just to give you context, pre-COVID, so in the month of February and March, we seated nearly 10 million diners a month at 50,000 partner restaurants, right? So, as I said, a team of 800 people across 20 cities. You can imagine the challenges that come with having such a large customer base, having such a large team. So it's very difficult to sort of completely switch off, and that's the main. So I would say, I don't think so. That's the right thing to be completely switched on and thinking about work, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. That's the way it has become.
Why did you shift from investment banking to Dineout, starting your own startup? And that too in the food tech.
Yeah.
You got on to fintech, but you had it in food
Yeah,
tech.
absolutely. So I think one of the great experiences, when I talk about experiences, one of the great things or defining experience for me was having great food at great restaurants in London and across the world, right? Whenever I used to travel to Spain or Italy, I used to have great food. And every time I used to go out to a restaurant, I used to realize that restaurants are packed, especially in the UK. Great restaurants are always packed, and you had to book in advance, etc. And whenever I used to come back, and I was trying new and different, cuisines and restaurants very often. But whenever I used to come back to India to meet friends and family, I realized that we always ended up going to the same 5-6 different places, because those are the comfort places, and people did not want to try something new. However, I also thought that, and this is now we're talking about 2008, 9, 10, right?
Yeah.
I thought that, the Indian economy is changing, the Indian mindset is changing, and a big shift is about to happen in terms of, what we perceive to be as experiences. My generation, people who've been now left school in 2002 are now getting into a graduate, getting in the first jobs, and will spend a lot more on experiences and money, etc. And food was obviously going to become a very important part of it. And I could see a trend where new and new restaurants are opening up, etc. So, meanwhile, back in the UK, I had survived this, this entire financial crisis of 2008, 2009, where the markets went crazy, the financial economy collapsed. There was, we were forced to work 14, 15-hour days. It was very stressful, and I was able to survive and come out of that. But then the question that I asked was that, it had already been five years into it, and would I want to continue doing that for another 5-10 years, or do I want to do something for myself? And at that point in time, I was speaking to one of my co-founders, Sahil, who was in the US, and we just started talking about it, and we were just chaining notes on what we love to do, and food was a very prominent part of it. And then, one thing led to the other, and we came back to India for a holiday together. In the sense, we both happened to be in India at the same time, and we went out to a restaurant, and we started talking about these things, and we realized that how he was using a platform called OpenTable in the US. I was using a platform called TopTable in the UK, and how those platforms made life a lot easier for people to discover great restaurants and book. And that's where the idea came from. And then eventually, so for me, it was still difficult to sort of shift back, because so now we're talking about November 2010. That's when the idea came to me. And I told, and that's why we came to India in December 2010. Me and Sahil met up. We had this idea, and then we went back. So he went to the US, I went to the UK, and then in January 2011, he calls me up and he tells me that, yeah, bro, I think the idea is great. So I'm quitting my job and going back to India in February. And I was like, whoa, dude, hang on. So all of a sudden, shit got real for us, because
Yeah.
now it had just been an idea between friends, and he told me that he's quitting his job and moving back. And I was like, oh, okay, things are getting serious. So eventually, it did take some time for me. So he moved back in February. I moved back in September. But between February 2011 and September 2011, a couple of very important things happened in my for me, which actually made the decision to quit a lot difficult. So the first thing was that I gave my final level 3 CFA exam in June, and in August I in August I got my results, and I realized that I passed and I got my CFA charter. So this is something that I've been studying for 5 years. I got my charter, and that, you won't believe, but that was, I still remember the day. It was August 16th, and that was the day when I actually quit, and everyone around me, like my parents and my friends in the UK and my boss and my colleagues, were like, "Are you mad that you're working so hard to sort of do this and you're quitting and going back?" And I was like, "Yeah, again, it goes back to the lesson that I had. The fear of failure was gone. So I realized that now is the best time to do it, if ever, because otherwise, once I start a career into this new trajectory, I will never be able to sort of quit." The second important thing that happened was that in 2011 summer, I got my permanent residency in the UK, and that happened in July, and I was literally 12 months away from the passport. So, and I moved back to India in November 2011. So, and everyone was like, again, like, "Dude, what do you, at least wait to get your passport, then you go back." And, so these two very important things that happened. And my challenge, or at least in my mind, the way I was thinking was that if I actually wait and get my passport, in the back of my mind, I'll always have a safety net that I could come back to the UK anytime. And that would mean that I would probably do whatever it takes to succeed.
Not go all in.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Not go all in. And, so that's why, so those two things happened, and that eventually, we came back, and, as they say, the rest is history. We came back, we started up Dineout we launched Dineout in February 2012, and,
29th February.
29th, absolutely. It just happened to be,
Very
a
unique day.
leap year, and we realized, that's it, we need to do that. However, the challenge, when we were starting Dineout, and this is a funny story, is it wasn't just about work, right? What you have to realize is that by this time, all of us, so it was me, Sahil, and then two of our other school friends, and Vivek and Nikhil joined. And it actually goes back, so the four of us had been friends from nursery. So it will be 20 years that we've been friends, and our families were friends as well. So there's now we're 8 set of parents that we are sort of having to, explain why we're doing a startup after having all of us quitting our jobs. And we all by that time had a career of 7 to 8 years, right? And we were all 25, 26 years old. And the biggest challenge our parents had, so first was like, "Yeah, you guys are mad, and you quit your job and you sort of come back." But their problem was that you quit your jobs and you're doing a startup. तुमसे शादी कौन करेगा तुम लोग से? Because this was 25, 26, and you're supposed to sort of, get married at that time and start a family or whatever. And I think it's funny whatever happens, but within before starting Dineout, 3 of us were engaged, and within 1 year of starting Dineout, 3 of us were married as well. So because our parents were like, get this out of the way, and that's the shift again. For us, think of it, right? We've been outside India for a while. We've sort of had our experiences. We're coming from, and all of a sudden we come back to this Indian culture, and the first thing is marriage.
Marriage. Were you one of those 3 people?
Yes. Within
I guess that.
So I got married in Feb 2013, and as you said, we started in Feb 2012. So we got married. But however, our parents, from their perspective, they didn't. And this is again 2011, 12, right? So the concept of startups is not there. It's very different environment.
The startup ecosystem is not there.
Startup because there is nothing, right? And you're planning to do a startup, and all of us by that time, as I said, I had never worked in India before. Sahil had not worked in India. Vivek was in the merchant navy. He had never worked in India. So out of the 3 of us had never worked in India. And our parents were like, "Okay, you guys are quitting your jobs and coming and starting up. Like, what the hell is this all about?" So they thought that we are crazy. And I remember during one of our heated discussions where we were trying to convince them, I don't remember who, but someone's parent asked that, what brand of stuff have you guys been smoking that you guys are doing these crazy, crazy decisions? So they literally thought that we were on drugs and we were going crazy doing these, that's what we were doing. But the challenge was that even after starting up, and this is something we did with our own money, we were bootstrapped. The only advantage, one of the main advantages of having worked outside India was obviously we had great salaries and we were able to save up money. So we were able to, use that money to start Dineout. They didn't get the confidence in us, I would say, until we raised our first round of angel investment in August of 2012. And at that point in time, and for us, it was a huge amount. So it was $100,000 that we raised as a first round. So that was roughly sort of 65 lakhs in 2012 August. And at that point in time, they realized, yeah, if someone else has put in money into their business, then kuch to kar rahe ho, inge se. So I think at that point is when they decided to sort of back off, and from there on, it's been a great journey.
Due to this pandemic, the entire industry, in fact, the entire economy has collapsed. And the most effective, I think, affected is the restaurant industry.
Absolutely.
And I think restaurant industry is one of the biggest industry in India. As you're talking, the food is our culture.
Yeah.
We talk with food. It's like, what are you doing? We're eating. What did you eat today? That's like a normal question for us, right? Mm-hmm. And the industry has collapsed completely. So, do you think that industry can recover after this ends, after the pandemic ends?
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right in saying that food globally, obviously, and restaurants globally are a great social sort of are a place where obviously people go and have great social experiences, and all of us have had some of the other great moments at restaurants. Right. But more so in India, I would say, because food is woven into our society. But more importantly, from an experience standpoint, let's say in the West, you can in Europe or in UK, you can go do so much. There are so many experiences to be had and taken. But in India, it's all about either you would go out, watch a movie, which is followed by a dinner. You would go out to a mall, it is followed by a dinner. So dining out and eating at restaurant is a more than it's a lifestyle for most of us, right? And the entire restaurant industry coming to a standstill was completely unprecedented. So never before in the history of the world, since restaurants have started, has the restaurant industry completely shut down. Not even during World War I, not even during World War II. Never ever has it happened. And here, for starting March, the entire restaurant industry complete standstill, and that is absolutely unprecedented. No one knew how to react to that. And a lot of restaurants suffered. So, you're right. So, the restaurant industry, the F&B industry in India is the second largest employer of human capital, with nearly 7.5 million people working in India, working within restaurants, and millions more jobs associated associated with industries which surround the restaurant industry. All of a sudden, everything at a standstill. Even now, things are not back to normal, right? So there are challenges. People are not comfortable going out. So you're right. So it's very difficult times, and we're going to see a lot of restaurants shut down. So our estimate suggests that nearly 30-35% of the restaurants are going to shut down, by the time we come out of this pandemic. So that challenge is there, and this is a global problem. However, and this is a big however, at least from an India perspective, right? We also believe that the restaurant industry is going to be the first industry and the fastest industry to bounce back. And the main reasons for this are socio-economic, and I'll tell you why. So, what are people? So, once we come out of this pandemic, and it's been already 6 months into it, and people are tired of sitting at home. People want to go back to the normal life, right? And at a very easy way of doing that is actually going out to a restaurant meeting. So that's the first thing. It gives you that sense of normalcy. The second is that people are not going to be traveling for leisure anytime soon. So we don't see leisure travel coming back again in a hurry, because people are still going to be cautious. You don't want to be in a plane with people, confined space, etc. So people are going to be cautious about it. Again, people will not go and watch a movie as well. So cinemas have not opened up yet, and people would probably not want to go watch a movie, especially with the advent of OTT platforms. In the last 6 months, OTT platforms have gone through the roof, and now all new movies are available on some of the other platforms. So that whole watching a movie experience is also out of the window. Hence, what is left? Dining out. So people can still, restaurants are the only things that are left. So once people get confidence, people will go back to restaurants a lot more, and it's already started. We're seeing some great sort of comeback happening at restaurants. So that's the second reason that we believe that it's going to happen. The third reason also is that the last 6 months, the shift in the whole office environment has been this entire work from home culture. Now, once you have this entire shift from shift from office to work from home, and we believe that it's here to stay at least till the end of this financial year, purely because businesses need to save money, right? So even at Dineout, we had offices in 20 cities, and we've given that up now till the end of the financial year, and everyone is work from home. Once we have work from home, then people do not need to go spend as much money on clothes, etc. Right? You're not, you're saving money on travel, fuel. You're saving money on clothes, etc. So there's a lot of discretionary income that probably will get built up over time. And again, the easiest way to sort of spend that is go out and have food at a restaurant. So we believe that because of these three reasons, I think the restaurant industry is going to be the fastest industry to bounce back. And we expect that by November, December, things are going to go back to sort of 70 to 80% of pre-COVID levels. And it's already started to happen in different parts of the world. So that's why we're hopeful.
Right. Do you think that delivery, the Zomato, Swiggy, they're more delivery, delivering the food at your doorstep? People being cautious. Do you think the delivery part would overcome the dining out experience?
I think that's a good question as well. So let me tell you a little bit something about the restaurant industry, right?
Yeah.
75% of the revenue generated by the restaurant industry is generated by people dining at the restaurant. So delivery as an overall size of the industry is only 25%. That's the point. That's point number one. The second point is that obviously, so the delivery platforms have brought in a lot of convenience, and they made life a lot easier for consumers. And in the last 4 or 5 months, obviously a lot of people who have probably not gone out to eat, but are still getting food delivered at home. However, what I believe is that was happening because restaurants were not open and people wanted to have food cooked from outside. So they were calling for food. But it's very important to understand that the experience that one gets while having dining at a restaurant cannot be replicated at home. While the food might be the same, it's also about the experience, right? So that cannot be replicated. And once restaurants start opening up, if I have to eat food cooked from outside, and if restaurants can assure me that this is a safe place to go, people will start going back, and we're already seeing that. So if given a choice now between eating at home and dining out, I would choose to dine out because for the last 6 months, I've just been cooped up inside my house and I've not gone out. So, again, what I'm trying to say is that delivery will be there. It's always going to exist. But people will now, going forward, start to eat out a lot more when things appear to get back to normal, because there are no other, as I said earlier, everything else, they will become restricted. So that's what we believe is going to happen.
I was reading your LinkedIn, and you had an article or a post saying that contactless dining is the future.
Yes.
What is? I was reading about it and I understood the contactless dining, but the dining entire experience, as you were saying, it's an experience, right? It is not about food. It's experience, like meeting your friends, family members, and contacting. And contactless dining would actually remove all of these components.
Absolutely. No. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. So when we talk about contactless dining, what we are saying is that we are with a suite of tech products. So also just to add, Dineout today is the largest tech provider to the restaurant industry, with nearly 20,000 restaurants using our software, right? Our tech product. Now, with contactless dining, the idea is to reduce. It's not to eliminate. It's to reduce touch points within a consumer journey, which are not necessary, or which can be reduced. So, for example, like menus, right? What we know is that menus inside a restaurant change hand the most frequently, and it could probably be the most, the carrier of it could be the one thing that carries germs the most. Now, what we are saying with contactless dining, one of the modules of contactless dining is that the menu ordering experience goes digital, and you can access the menu through your phone, and you can scan the QR code, and you can open the menu and you can order. So what we are saying with contactless dining is that wherever tech can play a part in improving some processes within the restaurant, that is what it is going to do. Now, the advantage of, let's say, from a consumer perspective, the advantage of ordering through your phone is that when you go sit inside a restaurant, you don't have to wait for the menu. You can straight away scan the QR code, see the menu on your phone, order. You can in fact pre-order as well. So let's say if you, and this is, so one of our surveys that we did, we saw that nearly 80% of the people, when they visit a restaurant, they already know what they want to have, because they're going to a particular restaurant for familiarity and for a particular food. So when you go to, for example, Mama Goto, I know that I'm in Mama Goto, I'm going to have this. Or when I go to Big Chill, I know that I'm going to have this because I've had that before. I like having it. Now, what this entire contactless dining experience, lets you do is actually look at the menu before and actually order as well. So that when you arrive at a restaurant, you don't have to wait for a long time to get the food. It comes to you quickly. So overall, the contactless dining suite makes life a lot easier and simpler for restaurants and for consumers. So it is not supposed to eliminate the experience of dining out. It's supposed to enhance the processes that are involved, the steps that are involved in dining. Yeah.
I read your statement when you said that closing the first restaurant was very difficult. And then from there you went on to 20,000 restaurants.
Yeah.
So how did you convince the first restaurant to come on board? And from there, I mean, I'm pretty sure close to 100, 200 restaurants would have been difficult. After that, I think it would have been word of mouth, or you could have got.
Absolutely, I think that's the problem. That's the challenge with anyone starting up. Getting that initial set of customers is the most difficult. So I have to go back to all the way back to now to the end of 2011, early 2012, right? We are building this platform for consumers and for restaurants. And we are this 25-year-old guys who are trying to do this. We're going out and meeting restaurants and telling them that this is going to be the future of dining out. People will reserve. You should come on a platform. And every single person asked us that, okay, हमें नहीं लगता ये इंडिया में ऐसा कुछ चलेगा because हम तो इतने सालों से रेस्टोरेंट चला रहे हैं and we don't see the need of it, right? So that I think we struggled during the initial days. And when we launched on 29th February 2012, we launched with only 75 restaurants onto the platform. And having that first 75 restaurants, बोलते हैं हिंदी में घोड़े खुल गए थे. Like it was probably the hardest sales of our life, and it was not even a sale because we were our model was that we will not charge you anything, and if someone comes to your restaurant via our platform, then only you pay us. So it was a model which was a pay for performance model, right? And it was crazy. And I think so the first set of people, the first set of restaurateurs who sort of believed or in our platform were people who had sort of seen similar things across the world. And they are still on our platforms, and a lot of those restaurateurs are now our mentors and our great friends. So I think it was very difficult, but I think you have to do it the hard way. That's the only
place.
Yeah.
The last question about Dineout would be, what does the future hold for Dineout? I mean, you have 360-degree softwares, for the customer as well as the B2B for the restaurants, which you're now also, servicing in international countries like Kenya and, outsourcing them.
Yeah.
So what does the future hold for Dineout?
I think to be honest, we're just getting started. Like the pandemic has been sort of a reset button for a lot of businesses, and it has made us also focus a lot more on what our priorities are. And in fact, the way we like to think, and a couple of very prominent restaurateurs have also said is that COVID turned out to be the CTO for the restaurant industry, because technology for the restaurant industry has gone from sort of a good to have to a need to have, because all of a sudden people have realized that technology can be used not just to get consumers in, but also to lower their costs and to improve operational efficiencies. And in fact, it's surprising, and when we look back on it, we cannot believe this, but in the last 6 months, our count of restaurants using our software have doubled. So when we went into the pandemic, we were at around 10,000 restaurants using our technology. Now we are at 20,000 because all of a sudden everyone realized that they need technology to survive and going forward to grow from here, because the new normal for the restaurant industry is going to look very different from what was there earlier. And this is a trend that we're seeing not just in India but outside India as well. We've signed up restaurants in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Dubai, in Kenya, and we're looking at now other geographies across Europe, etc. as well. Because all of a sudden, restaurateurs are waking up to the fact that technology is required within the restaurant industry. And I wouldn't say fortunately, but the way Dineout, we've been able to do our business for the last 4-5 years is actually position ourselves to be the leading tech platform within the restaurant industry. So we did a couple of acquisitions in Resto in 2015-16, then we did Torcus in 2018. And over the years, this entire suite of products is something that today, I would say no one has, like our complete end-to-end system. And that is what now people want, and that is what we are banking on. So I think while in the short term, the next 4-5 months from a consumer side is going to be, it's going to take some time to come back. But I think technology-wise, it's going to be great for the ecosystem, and purely because restaurants. So restaurateurs also know which ones are going to survive, and they're taking all steps necessary to reduce their costs, bring in efficiencies, and technology does that.
Right. So we move on to fun question answers, which you can answer in a word or in a line. Or I mean, if you want to go on and explain, obviously.
Yeah.
We've already covered what your best decision was. I want to know what was your worst decision, worst mistake.
I think so. There have been quite a few decisions. I wouldn't say worst, because obviously you learn. So I've learned a lot from my from my mistakes along the way. So I can't say there's a worst decision as such, anything, because there have been quite a few bad decisions, which obviously makes you stronger. However, one moment that I always regret, I wouldn't say regret, but I always keep thinking back to is, so I used to play poker a lot back in the UK, and I used to go play in tournaments at casinos, etc. And I folded one hand, which I still remember till this date. So I had a ace king, suited, and on the flop, basically we had I remember it was two jacks and a king. So I had a king pair. There was a jack pair, and then ace open, and so I had ace pair and I had a king pair, and this guy in front of me sort of he went all in, and now with the ace, jack, and king, there was a straight on the table as well. So there is now a possibility of a full house. There's a possibility of a straight. There's a trips as well. And I had two top pairs, and I had just started playing, and I think I was not able to calculate the odds, and this guy went all in, and I panicked and I folded. And just to spite me, just to sort of just to rub it in, this guy opens up a pair of deuces, and I was like, oh shit, man, what did I? So I think but yeah.
Right. What are the 5 most used apps in your phone? Most used apps.
Okay. Yeah. WhatsApp obviously is there. Which I think could be on anyone's phone. So okay, let me not talk about WhatsApp and Gmail and all those things, right? Let's go beyond that. So I use money control and Edelweiss a lot because I actually do a lot of trading in the equity markets, etc. So I use those two apps a lot. In fact, I also play whenever I sort of need to just sort of de-stress. I play this game called Score Match a lot on my phone. So Score Match and Score Hero are these football games. So I play. Correct. Yeah. So I play that a lot. And then apart from that, music I listen to on multiple sort of multiple devices. So multiple apps. Like so, I use sometimes I use Spotify, or sometimes I use Ghana, I use Amazon. So music as a category I use a lot. And then news also. So news also I read multiple sort of apps for news, etc. And in the last 6 months, Amazon and Big Basket have become like sort of a daily use case. Just something or the other needs to be ordered. Yeah.
Are you a chai person or a coffee person?
No, chai, man. That's something that I've traveled the world, spent time outside in such a long time, but you couldn't take the tea out of me. So I don't like coffee. I've always been a hardcore sort of tea.
Right. Have you gained weight or have you lost weight in the lockdown?
In the lockdown?
Yeah. I mean, this entire period where we.
Yeah. So before the lockdown, I was on a really hardcore sort of fitness sort of a thing, and I used to go visit the gym. I used to play badminton early in the morning every day, and I was wanting to lose weight. And then the lockdown happened, and then I think during the lockdown, everyone discovered their inner chef. So I also sort of went crazy, started cooking. So I was losing weight during the initial period of the lockdown, because at that point in time, it was a new thing. So I used to do these online classes, etc. But then by the middle of it, you just got tired of it and then started cooking and eating a lot. So I started gaining weight, and then in the last sort of 6 odd weeks, I've lost. So overall, I would say I've lost a couple of kgs, but I know people who've lost, 15, 20 kgs. So, that's one thing that, if we were to go back into the lockdown again, the two things I would do probably is definitely lose a lot more weight, and definitely start trading early into the lockdown to make a lot more money then. Yeah.
Booking a Reliance at 900. Just
Dude,
doing it
it's such a... First, I bought Reliance at 900. I sold it at 1100.
I did the exact same thing. I did the exact same thing.
So my point is that I bought all these amazing blue chip stocks at such low prices, and I sold out early because we didn't know where it was going.
Yeah. Even Aarti drugs. I don't know if you know about Aarti drugs.
Dude, Aarti, whether it is Aarti drugs, whether it is any chemical, whether it is lubricant.
Yeah.
So I am very active. So I've been always very active within the stock market in the last 6 months. In the last 6 months, because I was at work from home and I had time, I spent a lot more time, being involved in the market. So, but yeah.
Right. Do you
actually just to add, maybe the worst mistake also is that selling Reliance at 1100 after buying it at 900.
Yeah. Do you binge watch shows? Netflix or Prime?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a sort of sometimes you just need to break away from reality. And when I watch something, I tend to finish it off soon.
Do you order food from Zomato and Swiggy?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. In fact, just to come back to the binge watch thing, I think there are a couple of series which are amazing out there for people who've not seen, and this is across different sort of genres. So if someone is into sort of great financial drama, I think there's a show on Hotstar called Billions.
Okay.
I would recommend that to anyone and everyone. It's absolutely amazing. Then I've just finished on Netflix something called The Last Dance, which talks about Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Michael Jordan. Yeah,
it was absolutely crazy. Amazing what it was. So these are two which come to mind, but then there are others which I love watching. Blacklist, which is just a sci-fi fantasy sort of thriller. So yeah, so there are a lot of shows. Yeah.
Do you watch Indian web series?
Absolutely. I think the quality of Indian web series over the last 1 year has become absolutely a couple of years is absolutely amazing. In fact, this one. So Inside Edge was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
I think that was the first web series.
Yeah, Inside Edge was the first web series. Yeah. Sacred Games, I think I binge watched that one like nothing. Like it was amazing. So in fact, I completed Inside the Sacred Games, the first season in 2 days, the second season also in 2 days, just back to back. It was amazing. And now, and obviously with my wife, so she loves as well. So we watched a couple of those ones, like Made in Heaven has been excellent. I think the latest one my wife just completed was Masaba. Like there are a few of them, like which you always. So when you're sitting together, I think you just end up watching TV. Yeah.
Right. So I'll come to the concluding questions now. Right. Who or what inspires you the most? Anything that has stayed with you throughout your life?
So absolutely. So when I went to the UK, right? So this is even in 2002, 2003, entrepreneurship was big over there. And I think my first role model or hero, I would say, from that perspective was Sir Richard Branson. So I was like, crazy about after reading his story. I went crazy as to how did this guy from man from nothing build a multi-billion-dollar empire that traversed music, railways, and even space with Virgin Galactic Airlines. So I think that inspired me a lot. And then I think over the years, because I think great entrepreneurs have been an inspiration to me. So Jeff Bezos, truly inspirational, crazy. Everyone should read the book, the Amazon's. I'm not able to recall the name, but I think it's the Amazon story or something. So that's been excellent. Jack Ma, his story has been inspirational and crazy. We should all sort of read that as well. Elon Musk, again, a great guy, crazy, inspirational. So that's been the sort of from entrepreneurship perspective. Lately, again, and especially after watching The Last Dance, it just blew my mind away after what Michael Jordan was able to achieve for basketball as a whole, and how he took a US sport and made it a global entity. So that has been absolutely sort of amazing. So entrepreneurship, and then sports figures also I follow, and I read a lot about how they've been able to change the face of the game. So obviously Michael Jordan was one for basketball, Tendulkar for obviously cricket, but also so I used to follow tennis a lot, right? The era of what Sampras, what Sampras and sort of McEnroe and all did for the game. So yeah, obviously, so there have been quite a few people I follow and learn from. And
do you follow Indian cricket?
Sorry?
Do you follow Indian cricket?
Yeah, of course.
IPL.
Yeah, of course. So in fact, on the Dineout app, in fact, on the Dineout app right now, for IPL, we're doing this predict and win contest where all you have to do is predict the match winner, and you have to predict the score range of each. So let's say today is Mumbai and Chennai. So you predict who's going to win the match, and you predict the score range, whether it's going to be 0 to 160 or 160 to 300. And if you get any of those right, you get 150 rupees. So yeah. So
who do you think will win today?
Who do you think
will win today?
I think, to be honest, it should be Mumbai, because they're a great team, and I think
better in shape.
Sorry?
They're better in shape.
Yeah, better in shape. Better in shape, yeah. But then, you never know what happens.
From the heart, I think everyone wants Chennai to win.
Yeah.
Chennai to actually.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. What would you like to say to Ankit in his early 20s or in 18, 19 years when Ankit later on? A few things coming back, right? So the first and foremost is that your grades do not define you, and that's something that I learned after a lot of time. Like, you study hard, you do all of that, but your grades do not define you. The second thing is that have a lot more fun than what you had. So to be honest, we have these inhibitions that would stop us from doing a lot of things. I think that was the one major lesson. If I could go back in time, I could sort of change. I would definitely change that. Take a lot more risks, have a lot more fun, do a lot more, experience a lot more things. Yeah. The rest, everything figures out a way to fall in shape. Is there anything else you want to tell the listeners but haven't had the chance to?
No, I think I've spoken a lot there. I don't know how many people are gonna, honestly, listen to the entire thing.
None of your stories were skippable.
No, that's great. But I think the one thing that I would want to sort of tell people is, take the risk and follow your dreams. The worst that is going to happen is that you're going to fail, but that is not the end of the world. You're definitely going to learn something, from it. I think we all need to get rid of the fear of failure in ourselves, and I think that's something that it's easier said than done, and the life experiences that define you. Go travel as much as you can. Travel the world when things get back to normal. Obviously, stay safe right now. I think meet as many new people as you can. Go make as many friends as you can. I think those things probably are very underrated, but now I realize the value of it in hindsight and after having my kids. So, for example, even now, so I go. It's a mandate for me to travel. So I do a couple of international travels every year, and I go to a new destination. And the destination I choose is where I have some friends from my time at university or my time in the UK, and I make it a point to stay with them. Some people might say that it's invasion of privacy or whatever it is, but the fact is that I have made great friends over during my life, and I stay with them. I experience local with them, and that's something that's very important. And when those friends come to India, I make it a mandate that they stay with me also. So yeah.
Great. We'll take a quick sponsored question. Niyo Forex Card is our sponsor. They provide zero markup Forex Card for students traveling to abroad. In the recent past, a lot of students are going abroad to pursue their higher education. What, according to you, are the financial requirements they have to keep in mind? And what are your thoughts regarding the Niyo Global Card?
So I think that's a very good question. So people sort of tend to either most of the times people tend to underestimate what it would be like from a financial perspective to live abroad. And there are a few reasons for that, right? When you're at home in India, you don't realize a lot of the expenses that would occur when you go outside. So, for example, some of the smaller things like laundry, you have to wash your own clothes, you have to do your own laundry. That would you'll have a financial requirement for that. You'll have to cook, like eating, even cooking. So there are a lot of things that sort of need to be taken into account when you're planning your financial sort of roadmap for your time abroad. And I think Forex cards in particular have made life a lot easier today. So when I was there was no Forex cards, and if I ran out of money, it used to take a couple of days before my parents could actually send me money, whether it was wire transfer or bank transfer, or at that time the transfer, there was a lot of commission on transfers, and used to lose a lot of money. Whereas now with Forex cards, with Niyo, it's just a matter of seconds where you can upload a card for your kids over outside. So I think it's from that perspective, it's been absolutely great. The other advantage is, in my opinion, is that especially when you're traveling, right? People underestimate how much money they lose on currency exchange. So even when you go to, let's say from UK, you go to, so if you're going to multiple destinations, right? You would buy maybe one base currency, and then you would transfer that. So you would maybe, let's say, buy pounds, and then you would either change it into dollars or euros, or buy dollars and change it, and you would end up losing a lot of money. So I think a Forex card, and I think Niyo also especially helps you do that, because if I'm not wrong, and I've used it in the past, they have a maximum, they have a lot of currencies through which you can upload money. So that's, yeah.
Right. That covers up the podcast. Sir, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you, are you in a hurry to leave somewhere? Or go somewhere?
Yeah, dude, in fact, I'm way over time here. I had some, tell me, but why are you asking?
So basically what we do is, with every speaker who comes on board, we just quickly play a random game, a quick game of 10-15 minutes. Couple of members, they just join in, and we just play a scribble game or a chess game or whatever. If the speaker, agrees.
Yeah, dude, honestly, Sathik, it's going to be very difficult here right now. I'm really short of time now.
No issues. We'll look at that. No problem.
Yeah.
So I just close it with the closing statement.
Yeah.
Once again, we thank you, Ankit, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and participating in the podcast. I'm sure our listeners will find this very informative as well as inspirational. On behalf of the entire E-Cell team, would like to thank you for coming, and wish you all the best. And let's see, and we hope let the restaurant chain come back and bounce back very quickly after this entire pandemic.
Absolutely, Sathik. Thanks a lot for having me over and also thanks a lot to the E-Cell DTU. I think it's been good. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm available on LinkedIn. feel free to connect with me, or you can write a mail to me at ankit@dineout.co.in as well. I wish everyone, all the best. And, guys, go follow your dreams. You only live once. Make the most of it.
Okay.
Thank you so
Good
much.
gunners.
Go Gunners.
Okay. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Don't forget to like and comment the video. Also, subscribe to the channel for more exciting clips by the Entrepreneurship Cell of Delhi Technological University. Signing off, Sarthak Goyal.